Welcome into the STL Cards Season Scrapbook Week 3, presented by Peace, Love, and Baseball. I am your host, Burd Tweets. Thanks for joining me. Hey, if you're not following along on Twitter, I'm there on Twitter at Burd Tweets. It's right here in the corner for you. We are live on YouTube as well, so you can find the Burd Tweets YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button, give it a like, thumbs up, because we're going to be here every Sunday at 7 p.m. Central talking about the Cardinals week by week. Come win or lose record, like we're going to be here because that's what fans do, right? We stay tried and true through the best and the worst of it. And I wish I was coming at you again with better news this week. But here we are. I know there's some frustrations. I know there's kind of a lack of excitement and enthusiasm and maybe a lack of viewers or listeners on this because of that. But if you are here and if you are tuned in and still dialed in and still dedicated, I am right here with you. And I'm here to put as much of a positive spin on it, which I know sometimes people don't want to hear, but we're consuming it. It is entertainment. And to some extent, we're going to enjoy what we can from it and analyze the rest of it and take what we can and maybe put out what we would like to see change and all that good stuff. So that being said, the chat is open. If you are on YouTube, you can jump in the live chat. We'll definitely pose some questions, ask you for your thoughts throughout this broadcast, and feel free to drop comments in if you'd like to and be a part of the conversation. We're also streaming on our Facebook page. So if you're on Facebook, you can find us on Peace, Love, and Baseball, and then on Instagram at peace.love.baseball. This, of course, the audio of this will be available in your podcast feed, wherever you get your podcast tomorrow morning, if you want to tune in and listen to it or listen to it back then. But let's get right into it. The St. Louis Cardinals end week 3 of the regular season at 9-13, winning 2 of 3 against the Oakland A's in Oakland, and after being swept at home by the Milwaukee Brewers. That hurt my whole body to say that to you, but it is indeed what happened here to wrap up the full third week of the Major League season. But some perspective right off the bat, as I'm saying that, it's only the end of week 3, okay? Monday, April 15th through Sunday, April 21st are the games we are going to recap here for you. So starting with Monday, April 15th versus the A's in Oakland, this was Sonny Gray's 100th career victory. So always good. I know it was the end of a frustrating day, and we'll get to today's start with Sonny Gray, but always good to look back. Again, get some perspective on this was a big moment for Sonny Gray, and really awesome to see him do it in a Cardinals uniform. Gray's first 44 career wins were with the Oakland A's. Some of those in Oakland, most of those in Oakland. So his first 44 career wins were as an Oakland A, and his first ever career win came at the Oakland Coliseum. So very cool that he got career number 100 back where it all started. And what we can also assume will, very likely be his last time ever pitching at baseball's last dive bar, the Oakland Coliseum. Sonny was on a pitch count still, coming off the injured list, just really still ramping up into his full season repertoire. So he was on a pitch count of 75, and he made every single one of those count. He went 6 innings on 72 pitches, allowing four hits, 0 earned runs, and striking out 6. The A's would collect their only run off of Jojo Romero in relief of Sonny Gray on an Esteury Ruiz home run in the 8th. Cardinals offense, relatively quiet, but able to make it count thanks to Sonny Gray's performance, with only Nootbaar and Walker picking up hits, while Nato, Contreras, and Wynn also collected 2 hits apiece. RBIs that day were courtesy of Arenado, Contreras, and Jordan Walker to secure a 3-1 Cardinals win. Rolling into Tuesday, April 16th, again, versus the A's in Oakland, here's Lance Lynn coming out to get his first win as a St. Louis Cardinal since 2017. Another great highlight from this week. Lance Lynn came into Oakland hungry for innings, and he ate his fill. He went 7 full innings, allowing just 5 hits, 2 runs, 1 walk, and 1 strikeout. The earned run of the game came on a home run, surprise, by Kyle McCann in the 5th inning. The Cardinals offense was once again relatively low key, even in these winning games, right? With Goldie, Contreras, and Arenado, the only Cardinals to pick up hits. All 3 RBIs in this game for the Birds came came as outs. So Brendan Donovan picked up an RBI with the ground out, and Walker and Wynn both had sacrifice flies for the other 2 RBIs in the game. The Cardinals did walk 6 times in this game. Mason Wynn had 2 of those walks, which is encouraging to see in terms of plate discipline, with overall good stuff being thrown their way by the A's starter JP Sears. Jojo Romero and Ryan Helsley would shut down the last 2 innings to secure that 3-2 Cardinals victory. All right, it's kind of all downhill from here, folks, but don't worry, we will pick it up in the segments following, I guess, kind of these game recaps, because Wednesday, April 17th comes along and the Cardinals drop yet another series finale. They have yet to win the last game in a series this season, and they cannot get the sweep. They cannot do it. Steven Matz didn't look as sharp overall as he did in his first couple of starts of the season. He threw 94 pitches through 5 innings. He allowed 7 hits, 5 earned runs, 3 walks, and 4 strikeouts. But the A's would pick up a 6th run off of Ryan Fernandez, who, side note, might have the best mustache in all of baseball right now, with Spencer Strider on the injured list. I put that out there, and I did have a couple people come back and say, like, Miles Mikolas is very offended by this take. That's fair. But I actually, like, my first response to that was Miles Mikolas has a mustache, which is ridiculous. Of course he does. It's great. It's great. But this is where my take is kind of differentiated with Ryan Fernandez. Ryan Fernandez has a mustache that, like, stands out. I don't know what it is about it that makes it stand out over Miles Mikolas's mustache. Maybe it's just that I'm, like, so familiar with Miles's face that I just don't really recognize it. It's so organic to who he is. It's built into the fabric of Miles Mikolas. And Ryan Fernandez, it's just really like, it's a choice. It's a bold choice. So I don't know. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Feel free to tweet it to me or drop it in the live chat. Does Ryan Fernandez have the best mustache in MLB sans Spencer Strider? Or is there somebody else that I'm missing out on? Anyway, here he is again. Esteury Ruiz was the biggest offensive star of this game on Wednesday, the 17th, for the A's. He hit a 2-run home run in the 3rd. Ironically, really, like 48 hours prior to this, maybe 72 hours at this point, he was not playing in the big leagues. He was sent down to the minor league system. There was a lot of drama surrounding that, if you missed it. I forgot to put my Stand with Oakland bracelet on, but the A's, in their, all of the controversy surrounding them moving outside of Oakland and all of that, there is this charitable organization, fan-run organization called The Last Dive Bar that is very obviously against the A's leaving Oakland. And they're an amazing organization. You should check them out. I'll link it in the show notes if you do not know a lot about them. Got to do a great interview with one of the guys who runs it on Bourbon and Baseball. So I'll link that too if you want to learn more about them. But anyway, there was a lot of speculation that because Esteury Ruiz was wearing a Last Dive Bar wristbands, that was like part of the reason that the organization, they were like punishing him for supporting, anything that was remotely anti-Oakland ownership. And that's part of why he was sent down. It's, conspiracy theory. I don't think it's too far-fetched, because there was zero reason to send a player like him down. And clearly he's one of, the biggest offensive threats in their lineup every single day. So he came through for them in this game for sure. Willson Contreras continued to lead the offense with an RBI double for the Redbirds in the 4th, along with Ivan Herrera driving in 2 in that same inning. But sadly, that is all she wrote offensively for the Cardinals, and they drop yet another series finale. They can't complete the sweep, and they leave Oakland on a 6-3 loss to the A's. Willson Contreras, man, our catchers leading the offense here. We're going to talk some more about that, but I want to give a shout out to the gals at There Is Crying in Baseball, who designed and are selling this shirt that I am wearing. If you are watching, Willson is my catcher. Obviously, super cute. Love the sentiment, but the shirt is also super soft, very high quality, so I would recommend it. And if you're not following them, they are at Cryin, without the G, Cry, I-N, Baseball. And you can find all of their merch right there. Very easy, accessible. Would recommend. You might have also seen Haley from There Is Crying in Baseball wearing her Big Yvonne Girly shirt on the broadcast. I believe that was just yesterday's game or maybe Friday's game. I can't remember. But anyway, she was repping, and that one looked really nice too. So go check it out. Thursday, the 18th, was an off day as we traveled from the West Coast back home to Busch Stadium. Unfortunately, not a lot of winning would come our way. Back at Busch, Friday, 4/19 versus the Brewers at home. The first time we would meet the Brewers, arguably the biggest division rival, maybe. Are the Cardinals a division rival these days? Wait to see. It's really, the verdict is still out. Because the Cardinals lose 2-1 in extra innings, in 10 innings. Kyle Gibson actually pitched a pretty solid game. We talked about wanting to root for this guy last week, and I know you feel me to some extent, but he had a much more solid outing than his start last week. He went 6 innings. He allowed just 3 hits, 1 run. He did walk 4, but with 3 strikeouts. William Contreras, known Cardinals killer. There's always got to be a Contreras villain against the Cardinals, I guess. And this year it is William Contreras collecting the only RBI off of Gibson in the game. And he would ultimately get the second game-winning RBI in the top of the 10th off of Ryan Helsley, who takes the loss for this game. But the Brewers, here's the thing. They really did try to give it up to the Cardinals, who, again, failed to make the most of many opportunities. The Cardinals' only run of this game was an unearned run when Brendan Donovan walked with the bases loaded to tie the game in the bottom of the ninth. I don't know about you, but I was watching that game, and at that point, I literally said to my husband, I would rather them not score a run here than score a run, take it into extra innings, give me hope, continue to give me hope. And they did. They strung me along. I could have gone to bed. I work early on Saturdays. I could have used that extra 20 minutes or so of sleep, but they did what they do. We got some free baseball. Unfortunately, the end was not different. Overall, through this game, the Cardinals went 0 for 6 with runners in scoring position, and they left 12 men on base. 12 men in scoring, or I'm sorry, they just left. Yeah, they went 0 for 6 runners in scoring position, left on base 12. They weren't all in scoring position, but that's a lot. Just like, again, we need to go back to our parade tune. All the wasted runs, all the stranded runners. If you don't know Parade by Jason Robert Brown, you think I'm a psycho right now, and I am a little bit, but it just makes me think of that every single time. It is my song that I have written. For the Cardinals, I thought of 2023, but I'm worried that it is trickling in to 2024. But more on that over these next 2 games, because on Saturday, April 20th, we played the Brewers at home again. Cardinals lose 12-5. Spoiler alert. Rhys Hoskins hit a 2-run home run in the top of the first. And again, I don't know about you, but my experience, I was actually listening to the radio broadcast at this point because I was out and about. And it was kind of over for me then. And I'm usually not that kind of negative. I like to tease my grandpa, my late great grandpa. So he used to be this way, but my uncles and my cousins are still kind of like this, huge Cardinals fans, but they get down and out on it like right away. I mean, like somebody will get a leadoff base hit and they're like, it's over. Like, okay, calm down. There's 9 full innings of baseball, So I don't usually get discouraged that easily. But after that Friday game, and after last season, and after Miles Michaelis being the one that was on the mound with this happening in the top of the first, I think Stu Stelez on Twitter said it best, and I will quote him and give cred in the show notes for this. He said, I retweeted a tweet of his that said, Miles Michaelis bump days are just not a vibe. And that really just put a bow on exactly whatever I'm trying to articulate to you right now. Anyway, the Cardinals came back to get a run on an Arenado double in the bottom of the first. So, okay, there's some fight there. Cool. It's only 2-1. No harm, no foul. The Cardinals strung together offensive efforts to stay competitive in the bottom of the second when Newt, Walker, and Ciani loaded the bases. A Donovan sacrifice fly ties the game. Goldie's fielder's choice gets Walker in to take the lead, and a single to right field from Wilson Contreras, who is dragging. He is attempting to drag this Cardinals offense with him. He makes the score 4-2 Cardinals. I hope you enjoyed that lead because it was the only lead that we had in the series, and it lasted for a whole inning. Yeah, because here come the Brewers. Top 4, Bryce Terang hits a 2-run home run off of Michaelis to tie the game, and Jackson Cheerio gets his own long ball to take the lead, and they hold on to it and then some. Michaelis came out of the game after throwing 80 pitches through 4 2/3. He allowed 9 hits, 5 earned runs, 5 strikeouts, no walks, but those 3 home runs allowed is what really did him in. Here is where Miles Michaelis bump days are so not a vibe. Currently, Michaelis's opponents are batting .311 against him on the season, which is the 4th worst in baseball. I am still going to harp on small sample size because I hate putting really hard black and white things out and saying like, this is the story, like no arguments, because it is still a small sample size. But I looked that up because I knew he would be in the top 5 for worst batting average against him, like easy, no questions asked. There was no doubt in my mind about that, right? And in terms of win-loss records and a lot of the other metrics that you could look at, especially like the basic ones for the Cardinal starters right now, like he's not terribly far off. But this is an outlying thing for sure. None of the other Cardinals pitchers are in the top 10 or anywhere near for specific opponents' batting average against him. And yeah, the Cardinals could not put more than just they did put one more run up on the board, but the Brewers piled it on. They scored 3 runs against reliever Zach Thompson. They added another one off of Gallegos and another 3. I'm sorry. Off of Andre Palante. I'm like, that math's not adding up. They're 12 runs total. They scored 3 earned runs off of Andre Palante, who was optioned down to AAA the next day in exchange for Nick Robertson, who I assume we will see make his Cardinals debut here sooner or later. So yeah, in recap, Cardinals lose 12-5. We can keep that one out of the scrapbook for sure. Sunday, 4/21, we make it to today. Wrap up the series with the Brewers at home. And I don't know about you, but it was a new bright and sunny day, friends, because it's sunny gray day. Yeah, we've turned the page. There's always hope. He's the stopper, as they say, right? Here's the good news. I'm going to give you the good news first. Every Brewer struck out at least once. Sonny Gray is the first Cardinals pitcher to strike out 11 plus batters since Adam Wainwright did it on June 20th of 2021 versus the Braves. And I was so glad. Again, another shout out to Stu who pulled that stat out for us, because that's exactly what I was wondering as I'm sitting there. I said it out loud to my husband. I'm like, the last time a Cardinals pitcher has struck out this many, it's been a long time. And I knew it had been since at least 2021. So there you go. Unfortunately, Sonny would not collect the win. He left the game down 2-0 on an Owen Miller single that would drive in Blake Perkins and Bryce Terang. Blake Perkins is the real villain of this game, though, because he straight up robbed what would have been a 3-run Nootbaar home run in the first inning. And we just cannot recover from that kind of thievery when we're out here scrounging for offense these days. By the 7th inning, Sonny Gray was gone. The wave was in full force. You could see it on the broadcast behind home plate. That's when you know there's a surefire sign that all hope is lost. Am I right or am I right or am I right? Okay, takeaways from these 6 games, from the past week of baseball. There were 45 runners left on base in 6 games this week. Victor Scott was optioned to AAA along with Andre Palante, as we mentioned. Pedro Pajes is recalled. So we are carrying 3 catchers because Herrera and Contreras are our best bets offensively right now. We can't afford to not have both of those bats in the lineup. So they are going to trade off from starting at catcher and DH respectively. And that'll work for now. It's obviously not ideal, but it's a, temporary solution. It is what needs to be done. It makes perfect sense, for better or for worse, in the long term. But Michael Ciani will start in center field since Victor Scott is no longer with the squad until the return of Carlson and or Edman. And I think that's solid. Ciani is doing what you know you're going to get from him offensively. He brings a lot of value overall in terms of, again, he's kind of like a Lance Lynn, Kyle Gibson type of guy where like you just know what you're going to get from him. And that's as valuable as anything, especially for the Cardinals right now, when so many of the guys that they have different expectations for, regardless of what they are, they're just not getting anywhere near what they would expect, for better or for worse. Michael Ciani is a guy that you can roll out there and you know what you're going to get from him. And that's very valuable for any team, but especially for the Cardinals right now with the lack of consistency everywhere else. And speaking of a guy that you're not getting anything like what you would expect out of him, Paul Goldschmidt, hurts my heart to tell you about, but we got to talk about it. Of course, Goldie moved from he moved down to the 5th spot in the lineup after a very slow start to the season. They did speak a bit about it on the broadcast, saying that, Ollie had that conversation with him, and Goldschmidt was like, of course, a pro's pro. Like, you're not going to hurt my feelings. Do what you have to do. Like, I understand, like, I'm Paul freaking Goldschmidt, but also I understand that I'm 37 years old and like this is what is best for the team and probably for me right now. So let's, do what you got to do. Love that guy. And in the sense that I could see him really putting his ego aside. He seems like he just plays and is a teammate with as little of an ego that would get in the way of things like that as possible. So that's the silver lining here. His plate discipline didn't necessarily seem to be off. And I had talked about this with Susie on last week's episode of Bourbon and Baseball, that like, I wasn't necessarily, am I super concerned about Goldschmidt? No, because like Goldie warms up as the weather warms up, but his timing certainly is. And it's gotten to the point now where all aspects are suffering and he's just taking like less than competitive at bats, to put it nicely. And I do hope that with the weather turning, we will see a turn of the corner for Goldie, because you just don't expect. My husband was like, I mean, could this be Goldschmidt's last year? And for context, my husband has not followed baseball to the extent that I have. Like, he's really just gotten into it over the last few years from me forcing it in his face so many times. So he's, asking this just genuinely like, oh, is that where we should expect him to be at, 37 years old? Sure. And to some extent, you say yes, right? There's a certain level of expectation just with his age alone, but knowing that he is, less than, he's one season removed from an MVP season. And last season, he certainly didn't have the kind of regression that you would expect for him to now be like, is it worth keeping this guy on the roster? So I certainly hope, and I can't imagine that we are at that point with him, but yeah, something's off, and we can and hope for the best, but it is certainly frustrating to have one of the guys that is normally so consistent and so reliable. And I mean, last year, he was one of the only offensive pieces that we could consistently count on, even with him having a quote unquote down year from the year before. So it's tough. It's tough to see. It's not, not less than ideal, not unlike Nolan Gorman. Okay. I agree that Nolan Gorman is struggling. Just a couple weeks ago, week 1, he was our inaugural Bird of the Week. But I will say it. His strikeout rate is currently at 38%. That is well above the major league average of 24%. But here's what I will say. It was 31.9% in 2023. It was 32.9% in 2022. And he was doing great things. He was putting up, over a 2 WAR in 2023 while also striking out at almost 32%. We know that that's the kind of hitter that Nolan Gorman is. He's a power hitter, and that higher than average strikeout rate is something that comes along with that. Now, given the sample size, my point here is that I'm still not ready to hang Nolan Gorman out to dry the way that a lot of this fan base has. And given the struggles, the main thing is here, given the struggles for the entirety of the lineup, outside of maybe Contreras, Donovan, Herrera, and Wynn, everyone else that you're expecting a lot more out of, Jordan Walker, Paul Goldschmidt, even Nolan Arenado to an extent, Alec Burleson, I'm not, you can't pin it on him. I'm not ready to hang him out and say he is the problem, he is the guy. Like, I hear it, but it's simply not fair to throw one guy under the bus when it has to be some sort of systemic problem at least to some extent, with the sheer lack of offensive production from top to bottom at this point. This team is currently the fourth lowest in all of baseball in team batting average and slugging percentage, and fifth lowest in on-base percentage. That is jarring. Let me tell you which teams are worse offensively in baseball than the St. Louis Cardinals right now. The White Sox, the Oakland A's, the Miami Marlins, and subjectively, the Minnesota Twins. They are the only teams that have any kind of objectively worse offense than the St. Louis Cardinals. And those are teams that you expect, I mean, outside of the Twins, those are teams that you expect are going to be at the bottom of their division. And especially the White Sox and the A's are going to lose probably the most games in Major League Baseball. So not great. It sounds like it's a good time to move on to the scrapbook moment of the week because we're a little deep in the negativity here. So let's pick up the optimism, the highlights this week. The scrapbook moment of the week segment is a segment of a specific moment that no matter else what happens, no matter how bad the record is or what else there is to be frustrated about or what we think we can or can't fix or seeing wrong with this team, this is a moment that we're going to look back on and remember all season long and have just for us as a fan base to be like, that was a win across the board. So put a little poll out for you on Twitter today because there were still a number of highlights, a lot of them coming from the pitching staff and not just Sonny Gray that we were particularly thinking. So I put that out there for you all to have your say on this week. And with your contributions, the scrapbook moment of the week is Sonny Gray with all the Ks. 12 strikeouts through 6 1/3 innings pitched today, only one walk. The Cardinals have by far gone the longest without a pitcher recording 12 plus strikeouts of all of the 30 Major League Baseball teams. How long? Before today, according to the Codify account on Twitter, before today, it had been 2,122 days since a Cardinals pitcher last had 12 plus strikeouts in a game. Only 4 teams have gone over 700 days without 12 plus strikeouts. And those are the Orioles, the Tigers, the Rockies, and of course the Cardinals with significantly more days than 700. So to have a guy like Sonny Gray on our team and to get to watch that performance from a starting pitcher today, I mean, really all 3 times that he's pitched has been a real freaking treat for Cardinals Nation. It feels different. I mean, we've talked about this the past couple of weeks, but it feels different all around on every level. And the swing and miss that you're seeing, that you're getting from Sonny Gray, I quite literally have to be like, I'm so not used to seeing this. Like, this is just not the style of pitching. He is a different, complete player than what we're used to seeing on the mound out there. And it's a huge, huge highlight and a huge moment that we're going to stick in the scrapbook and remember for today, even though it did not come with a team win. And you know that's what ultimately matters to Sonny Gray, is he wants to go out there and win for his team. But man, are we lucky to have a guy like that on our team and to watch pitch. Let's hope the team can figure out how to make the most of it. I did want to add in the thing that we're going to definitely keep out of the scrapbook for this week. Like, this is what I want to just accidentally fall off the page, like cut the head off, is that 45 runners were left on base in 6 games played this week. So this week, the Cardinals went 7 for 49 with runners in scoring position. They batted a whopping 142 with runners in scoring position this week. That is something I want to rip out, throw it away, and never have happen again. So we might add that in, especially if there's a lot of, not great baseball happening and we're continuing to do these episodes, because that's just something that we need to toss in the trash and we can all agree to move on from, right? Before we wrap up today, we've got to get to Bird's Bird of the Week, as well as your official vibe check for the St. Louis Cardinals. So this week's Bird's Bird of the week. I mean, there was plenty of them, right? Wilson Contreras heavily contributing offensively. Brendan Donovan is still an on-base machine. Nothing affects that man. You can put him at any position. You can make him bunt. You can have him take a walk. You can have him up with a full count with one strike left, and you'd feel good about it every time. So I'm sure he'll be Bird's Bird of the week at some point. But this week's Bird's Bird of the week is Lance Lynn. The old dog, baby. A full 7 innings of work, allowing just 1 run. Today, he provided some upside, a highlight. He wore that bird hat giveaway the whole game today. He gave us a great interview with Jessica Kleinschmidt, who works for the Oakland A's. Check it out. I posted it on my Twitter a couple days ago, but it's like a 10-minute interview. But it's so weird. It felt like longer than that, which is usually like doesn't sound like a good thing, but it felt like longer than that in the sense that there was so much content and like really good, insightful conversation in 10 minutes that I felt like, wow, that was just like a really productive, insightful, thoughtful interview. And Lance, obviously a great conversationalist, gives, good, thoughtful answers, but Jess's questions certainly brought out the best in him. And yeah, it's totally worth a listen. It was a good highlight if you missed it. That was put out by another team featuring, a player on the Cardinals. My thought here is that the entire team needs to level up to the chip that is on Lance Lynn's shoulder. He is the other starting pitcher outside of Sonny Gray that this team can feel competitive behind in every time he goes out there, given the way that he is showing up so far in 2024. And I was not counting on that. I don't feel good enough to say like comeback player of the year, Lance Lynn, like again, small sample size, but really cool and exciting to see Lance Lynn show up on the mound the way that he has so far. And I do think like the energy, the vibe that he brings to the team is just as necessary, if not more, than the kind of Matt Carpenter, Kyle Gibson, Brandon Crawford veteran leadership. So very excited to have Lance Lynn on our team. Very grateful that he chose to come back. And I'm excited to continue to watch him throughout the rest of the season. Let's wrap up today with the only official vibe check in all of Major League Baseball. And that is right here by K-Bird Tweets on Peace, Love, and Baseball. The vibe check is where we really just read all the signs, all the feelings. I haven't really figured out a way to put this in hard data yet, but I really want to, because then I know John Mozeliak will pay attention to it. And yeah, the lack of offense has been a major buzzkill this week and so far this season. But there were a few notable things that became evident this week that we're going to keep this vibe check probably a little bit higher than how you and the general fan base might be feeling. In my vibe expert opinion, the vibes are solid this week for the St. Louis Cardinals. And I'm going to give you, that's the word, right? The word the last couple of weeks has been hopeful. The word this week is solid. And again, I know there's people out there fish shaking and saying like, how dare you say that this team is garbage? I'm going to give you some clear vibe indicators. The first one is from Wilson Contreras. One of the things that I noticed last season, and obviously there were some things very, poignant in the media that allowed us to gain a clearer read on this, but that the Cardinals as an organization were not really allowing Wilson Contreras to be Wilson Contreras. The player that we saw with the Cubs who has this like insatiable fire and this kind of that chip on his shoulder, the same way that Lance Lynn does, was there, but it was definitely muted by all of the noise around the organization not fully supporting him and having faith in him, and just all of the dance of uncertainty of what his role was and what they really wanted from him. And I feel like this season we are seeing Wilson just being able to be Wilson. And I can't remember what game it was. I tweeted about it. It was a game that they freaking lost, but I think it was that 12-6 game. He scored in an early inning, and the way he crossed the plate, and he was like the energy that he crossed the plate with and the way that he was cheering on his teammates, I was like, that's the interaction right there. The vibes are strong, and I didn't even think they took the lead when he scored here, but it was It was a good sign, and that was just one. That was, like, the first real moment where I, like, had a good read on him just being in a different place mentally, emotionally from last season. Another observation that I think if you look in on, you'll notice is that Nolan Arenado is I don't feel like he's pressing. E Even in the first, like, week or 2 where things were more frustrating for him at the plate, he didn't seem stressed, he didn't seem angry, and I feel like we saw a lot of that, like, high strung, high intensity, like, I am upset with myself energy that is not always productive in Arenado last season. I don't feel that from him now. And overall, for again, especially for a season as long as baseball, you can't carry that kind of anger and frustration and expect it to ultimately get you the results that you want. So that's another vibe check that I feel pretty good about. I don't know if you've noticed, but Wilson Contreras and Ivana Herrera have a pretty awesome bromance going on. They've both posted some content. They interact on social media a lot. Seems like the two of them have a cool bond and really support each other and are obviously providing key components for this team on both sides of the ball significantly at this point. So that's really fun to see as well. The other thing that I want you to take note of is that the rally signal, whatever, is it this? Is it this? Is it the arch? Is it a tree? I don't know what it is. If you know what it is, I don't think we know. But I had literally not thought that like it could be the arch, like the For the Lou thing. And someone pointed it out to me and I was like, I cannot believe I did not even think about that. So I'm leaning towards that, but it very much looks like they're bringing a point to it, which makes me think maybe no, but I don't know how, intentional they're being with that. My point is the rally signal is strong. Last season, they weren't fully committed to bringing the pepper grinder back, right? They at one point were doing like a thumbs up. They played with a lot of different things, but the point is it died out really quickly. Like they they were pouring it on at first. They were doing that, remember? And then like it crashed and burned so fast. Even when they're having these offensive struggles right now, like they are very committed, very connected. The rally signal is strong. And for what it's worth, the main struggle for this team is more obvious than it was last season. What I mean by that is in 2023, pitching, defense, and offense all had their significant struggles. This team, it does still feel like it has more fight in it most games, most of the time, and more things clicking for it in terms of defense, certainly in terms of what you're getting in the big picture from the pitching staff. Now, why the offense isn't clicking and what kind of quote unquote soul searching needs to be done, as we heard from the Cardinals broadcast team today, that is really the question. The offense is a clear problem. And it's easy to look back now, right? And be like, well, the pitching was the problem in 2023. But man, if you were here with me and we were working through it last season, one of the biggest frustrations for me personally was that it didn't matter if you got a one-off good game from a starter. It did not matter because they would still win 3-0. I was not planning on necessarily cussing on this, but I've stopped myself numerous times. So sorry if that offended you. But I remember thinking like, oh, we're all talking about the pitching because again, on paper and statistically, that is the outlier here. But the offense finished mediocre at best as a team. And that was lucky, honestly, because what is the problem? There's nothing straightforward about why it's not clicking, but it is the problem, the offense. So we've stepped it up from a pitching perspective for sure. And I was not completely sold on that. I'm still not to the extent that I want to be, but it is definitely better. And you have to be happy with what we've seen so far. The defense has made strides. I feel so much better about that. And I am very pleased to be watching the kind of Cardinals baseball defensively that we are used to seeing and that we expect. So now the offense has got to get it together, and there is no glaringly obvious reason why they should not be able to. So in that sense, I do overall feel more hopeful and think the vibes are solid. Solid is the word of the week for week 3. All right. To wrap it up here, a 3-game set with the Diamondbacks is up next at Busch Stadium, followed by a trip out to Queens to play the New York Metropolitans, who are looking pretty okay so far this season through next weekend. So like this video if you're watching it. If you want to make sure that you're tuned in next Sunday at 7 p.m., drop a comment. What are your vibes? Even if it's bad, like, you can tell me. It's okay. Like, as long as you're respectful about it, I'm here to listen. I'm here for you. Subscribe on the YouTube channel or follow along on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, all that good stuff. But I'll see you next week. Even if it's another rough one, we're going to be here together on the STL Cards Season Scrapbook Edition, brought to you by Peace, Love, and Baseball. I'll catch you next time.